Most of us have known panic. To be alive means to know panic. But to some people, certain situations, certain thoughts bring especially acute panic. We have names for some of these special fears. The two most important are called agoraphobia and claustrophobia. Few people have heard of agoraphobia and know that it means fear of open spaces, and yet agoraphobia is a common and crippling illness. In actual practice, it means fear of leaving the safety of one's home, fear of going out, of walking up the street, entering a store. For many, it also means fear of travelling in a car, in a train, in a bus, and especially fear of being in a crowd. For instance, of attending a school function, sitting in a crowded restaurant. Agoraphobia includes fear in so many different guises, it can indeed be a crippling illness. In my last broadcast, I talked about nervous illness to a general audience. Now, I wish to speak directly to people suffering with agoraphobia. So if you are suffering in this way, afraid to leave the safety of your home, I will now speak directly to you, as if you were sitting here beside me, because you are the person I particularly want to help. To me, you're not neurotic. You're simply a bewildered, frightened person. Because you have failed to find cures so far does not mean that you're a coward. It means only that you haven't known how to cope with your habit of fear, haven't known how to cope with sensitized, exaggerated emotions. If you suffer with fear of enclosed spaces, you're not really afraid that the walls of the room will close in upon you. And if you're afraid to leave the safety of your home, it's not because you fear that the houses on the street will topple down upon you. You know that none of these things will really happen. So what are you afraid of? You are afraid of the feelings that arise within you when you are in one of these situations, feelings of panic that overwhelm you, so that you seem unable to think clearly, seem to lose contact with yourself. You don't trust yourself while you're like this, and this is why you don't want to move far from home or be surrounded by people. You don't want to be in any situation where you think you may panic or make a fool of yourself in front of others. Somewhere in the past, you probably had an experience, perhaps an illness, which sensitized your nerves to respond in an exaggerated way to stress, so that panic came at the slightest provocation. Your heart would race, your stomach churn, your hands sweat, and you made the mistake of being bewildered and afraid of these sensations. Naturally, you began to avoid putting yourself into situations where you thought these disturbing feelings were most likely to occur. So you clung more and more to the protection of home. And this is how you are now, afraid to travel alone, afraid to sit in the middle of the hall at the school function. To be cured, you must learn how to cope, not as you suppose with a particular situation, but with yourself, so that you can go anywhere without panicking. To help you do this, I will now, in our imagination, take you by the hand and lead you step by step away from your home, and as we go, I will explain exactly what happens, why you feel this way, and what you must do about it to be cured. Are you ready? Good. But look at you. Before we've opened the door, you've already tensed yourself. You thought, oh my goodness, what's going to happen now? If we pluck a taut violin string, it responds by vibrating instantly and forcefully, whereas a slack string does not. By tensing your body in anxious anticipation, you made of it a taut instrument on which your fears can play a very painful tune. And you did this before you even put a foot outside the door. This is your first mistake. Release that tense hold on yourself. The worst that can happen out there in the street is that you can frighten yourself. I know that your sensations are so intense, come so swiftly, that it seems much more complicated to you than this. When nerves are sensitized, thought and feeling are so closely united. You may have but to think of a situation you fear, to feel that fear instantly, acutely, almost like a whipping flash. I know this, and I know how bewildering this seems to you. I know that panic may seem beyond your control, but it is your fear of being like this that is keeping you like this. It is your tense withdrawal from fear that is sensitizing your nerves to record fear so intensely.